In a small village in Cameroon, where red earth clung to bare feet and the morning smelled of wood smoke and wet leaves, there lived an old woman named Mamisira and her husband Papa Ewane. They were farmers, proper farmers, people who measured time by the weight of the rain clouds and the mood of the soil. Their farm sat behind their mud brick house, bordered by plantain trees that whispered all day. Cassava leaves shivered in the breeze. Cocoyams slept under the ground like secrets. Every season the land took their sweat and paid them back in food, and they thanked it like you thank an elder. They worked side by side even when their backs began to argue with them. Your knees are complaining again, Papa Iwane would say, watching Mama Sira stand slowly after weeding. And your stomach is the one that complains the loudest, she'd answer, tapping his belly with her hoe handle. Then they would laugh, quiet laughter, the kind that comes from two people who have been teasing each other for 50 years and still find it sweet. In the evenings, they sat on a low wooden bench under the avocado tree and shared one cup of hot tea between them. Papa Iwane always poured the first sip for her. Mama Sira always made sure the bigger piece of roasted corn landed in his hand. Their love wasn't loud, it was in the small, stubborn ways they refused to forget each other. One harmattan season, when the air turned dry and pale and the moon looked like a cracked plate, Papa Iwane fell ill. It started as a cough, then a weakness that made the machete feel like iron. The village nurse came, neighbors brought herbs, everyone spoke gently as if kindness could stitch a body back together. But it was Mami Sira who stayed closest, wiping his forehead with a cloth cooled in water, feeding him warm porridge, whispering stories into his ear as though stories were medicine. One night, as the wind dragged dust across the compound, Papa Iwane called her nearer. Mami Sira, he said, his voice thin like a tired rope. Do you remember what we promised? She sat on the edge of the mat, her hands holding his like she was afraid the world might steal him if she loosened her grip. I remember, she said. We promised to die on the same day, so nobody would be lonely in the ground. Papa Iwane tried to smile. We were young and proud. We were in love, she corrected. He looked at her for a long moment. Outside, the night insects sang their endless song. Inside, there was only the soft sound of their breathing. If I go first, he whispered, will you chase me too quickly? Mama Sira's eyes shone, but she didn't let tears fall. She had cried enough into the soil of that farm, and the soil had learned her grief already. I will not chase you like a foolish chicken, she said softly, but I will not remain behind like a stranger. He squeezed her hands, weak but certain. They lay awake until the rooster called the coming of morning. In that pale dawn, Papa Iwane slept and did not wake up. The news moved through the village like smoke, quiet at first, then everywhere. Women came to wail, men came to dig, children stood at a distance and watched the mystery of adults folding into sorrow. But Mami Sira was still. She washed Papa Iwane's face carefully, the way she had done on their wedding morning, when his hands shook with nerves and joy. She dressed him in his best clothes. She placed a small calabash beside him, something for the journey, because love does not stop preparing for the one you love. When the village elders came to console her, she thanked them politely. When neighbors offered to stay the night, she nodded, then sent them home with leftover food and quiet words. As the sun lowered, the sky turned the color of palm oil and the air cooled. Mami Sira walked alone to their farm. She moved slowly along the familiar path, touching the plantain leaves, brushing her fingers against cassava stems, as if saying goodbye to each thing that had known her. At the center of the farm was the spot where Papa Iwane used to stand and call her name when it was time to go home. Mami Sira, the pot is waiting for us. She stood there and listened, and for a moment she almost heard him. Then she sat on a flat stone, the one that they always used as a resting place. The ground still held the day's warmth. Above her, the first star appeared. My love, she whispered, you have gone early. The wind answered gently. She did not fall dramatically. She did not make a show of leaving. She simply leaned back against the earth that had fed them for a lifetime. Her breath came in and out like a prayer, slower each time until it became quiet. In the morning, when someone came looking for her, they found her there on the farm, peaceful, her hands folded as if she were waiting for Papa Iwane to come and say, let us go home. The village said many things after that. Some said it was too much love. Some said it was stubbornness. Some said it was a miracle. But the old women, the ones who understood the weight of years, only nodded and said they kept their promise. And in that small Cameroonian village, wherever two people argued and threatened to leave each other, someone would point toward Mami Sarah and Papa Wane's farm and say, half jokingly but serious in the eyes, love is just not sweet talk. Love is the way you work together to the end.